Yeah.
Right here in Lowry, because the target is this Niobrara Shale, they won't miss. There's not going to be a dry well here. This is certain for the industry, and it's going to be aggressively pursued because it can produce oil. The Jake well that came in at 90,000 barrels in the first 30 months was producing at a rate of $8 to $10 million of oil production per year.
And where was that?
That's in Weld County and in the Niobrara. It's just the name of the first well that was very successful in the Niobrara. Now since then, many other wells in the Niobrara have come in slightly under that, but all producing oil. So there's an enormous return on investment for this industry. They may be seeing 50% annual return on investment. If it costs them $5 million to do a well, they may get it back within 6 months even. So that means the industry has huge financial resources to do it right. It will cost more to do pitless and to contain this frac fluid in tanks, but there certainly will make a substantial to do it properly. And I want to make one other point. This development here could be done radically different than what the industry wants. If the industry left to its own devices, will have wells scattered throughout, maybe 1 to 8 per section. It doesn't have to be done that way. They could be compelled by aggressive citizen effort on the Land Board and the Oil and Gas Commission to centralize their facilities and substantially reduce their risk of toxic release. They could have a set of wells on a single pad and drill many sections from there. So it need not be done just at the industry's convenience of the kind of the measles approach when you look at a map of putting wells where they want. Mm-hmm. They could be compelled to go to a much denser location for the drilling pads to reduce how much truck traffic and dust. And then the other thing I'd like to see the industry do is not get by with its minimal requirements for bonding. An oil company in the state of Colorado can put a bond amount of just $25,000 for all the wells it drills in the state. Very little security for us citizens to know that they will properly plug and abandon these once they're completed.
What was one of the large settlements here in Colorado that one company was obliged to pay?
In Canada, out in Garfield County, where it caused that thermogenic gas to come to the surface as a result of not putting any cement behind its casing, was fined. I think it was $280,000. It was it was a large fine. It wasn't. Well, it was a large fine, but it certainly was not. It was a tiny percent of their profit. So it doesn't represent a significant impediment to be fined. And Canada is still expanding its operation aggressively.
So what you're talking about is essentially getting them to bond in a way that
well, I'd like to see it change.
Approaches true risk.
Well, I don't think the bond can ever approach the true risk. The bond is just there to put a little cement in the well once it's done. That doesn't approach a true risk at all. I'd like to see this industry be radically changed and be performance-based. Just like a hospital is. I mean, you can't run a hospital and expect to expand or run another one unless you meet quality performance. You couldn't run an airport that way, but this industry runs without being required to show high performance. I think for drilling at Lowry Range, the oil company should be required to prove it has a perfect track record of non-release at one well before it can be allowed to drill another. It should be performance-based and not just the way it is today.
Who could oversee that performance index?
Well, the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission could do it, or CDPHE, but the state legislature would have to be aggressive to move in that direction.
So we should get the legislators involved also in this question?
Right. Right. Certainly you can see in these Denver business reports there's a huge amount of income both to the companies and because of the royalties to the state. I mean, they could produce many hundreds, thousands barrels of oil. So that resource being that rich also means it could readily be done better and still make an adequate return on investment.
When I saw Gasland, I thought, well, surely they must be, can't be this bad. And the more you dig, the more you find that, yes, it is this bad. And to imagine you've got a whole cadre of people from different industries with this full mantle of respectability, essentially playing with words that no, fracking doesn't cause this, you know, these people's wells that are now causing them to be able to light their kitchen water on fire. No, we had nothing to do with it. It's like the argument that guns don't kill people, people kill people. Complete lack of responsibility and parsing words to absolve themselves from any
well, it's not just
description.
Yeah, it's parsing words because they've been able to avoid liability. This is an industry that's made a 150-year practice of buying out those they contaminate, often with silence. When Dave Neslin and his crew at the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission found thermogenic gas in Amy Ellsworth's well in Weld County, that is, gas in the industry showed up at the explosive concentration at her sink, you know what the state did? The state said, Miss Ellsworth, you have a contaminated well. You need to talk to the driller. So she, as a property owner, was first to deal with her perpetrator. Now eventually she does, armed with the evidence from the state that her well was contaminated by the industry, she makes a financial settlement with non-disclosure. So as a result, the industry doesn't disclose what caused that. We don't know if the state is able to correct that on the next well. It's all hushed up. So they're parsing words now because they're proud and cocky of the century of practice of buying those they pollute and obtaining their silence.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable that it's like science has been forced out of the equation in terms of collecting data for public health and safety.
Well, science need not be forced out. I mean, the state has the ability to go in and investigate. And sometimes they'll occasionally get a landowner with not a valid claim. Well, you can bet they're aggressive on that type of thing. But even when they find that the industry's caused the problem, they don't require the groundwater to be cleaned up. They often only require water to be hauled to that citizen. Like a Band-Aid on on severely bleeding patient. They don't require the groundwater to be cleaned up. We do know in Weld County they've had a significant problem. We know that because the state has gone to the unusual step of saying within a 25 square mile of Weld County, all drillers have to go and recheck their cement. The state made a mistake. It did not require the cement to be completed all the way through these aquifers. They allowed it just to go 150 feet deeper than the nearest domestic well, instead of cementing all the way through the usable aquifer. Once the state caught that mistake, it says to the companies you have to go back and check your pressures, and if you find any positive pressure in the annulus, the part between the production tubing and the hole, they have to reopen that and re-squeeze it. It's called re-squeezing. That is, they're trying to put forced cement in there later, but it's not a tenable practice. It's a weak practice. It's hard to get cement back behind the casing once you've put cement above it.
Well, thank you very, very much.